did for my 25th wedding anniversary. I rented that plane.
Good for you. Did you fly
Took-
it?
No, I just rode in it. I rented it with Rika and a couple other couples. And, we took it up and we did a bombing run over Huron Township and just flew around in the bomber. It was really fun.
Did you see?
I liked it so much I bought the T-shirt.
Was it the F1 races when you were there?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, dang, for F1.
Stepdad-in-law was really into that. I remember Memorial Day every year we'd see him just.
Yeah. I mean, the people that are crazy about it are crazy. Like for me, it's too loud, too smelly. I prefer to like sit by the beach and sip on ice water with a lemon.
You get to do both there, so that's.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. But it was beautiful.
You missed it. I sit in the middle chair
I
and
know.
everything.
You know what?
And I was like,
looked at the minutes and I noticed that
you
Brian
stressed
and I, we were
out.
both.
No, I was stressed out. I didn't have a calm. Yeah, it's
Somebody
always
else had to make the motions.
somebody else had to make the motions. I'm like, oh my God. It was a grand slam, right? That's what we called it, the grand slam.
A
Yeah.
grand
Yeah, because
slam.
Bernie did all the motions that night.
Yeah. He looked at me a couple times. I'm like, go for it.
Call that like a 3-pointer or a perfect
A
throw.
shot. I think it's called a shot.
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good.
I keep getting moving around, so.
Dan, what was that email you sent out?
I believe it's printed, and it
This?
explains some changes to the proposed agenda.
Oh, okay,
I believe
cool.
the revised agenda.
Phew, it's
I'm
been a
good, how
while.
are you?
I cheated.
Yes,
Hopefully
yes,
I have it back up
yes.
here.
I have been back in Michigan, but I went to Monaco, came back, went, well, first I went to Florida, then I came
Went
back.
to
and then
Monaco
I
as in Monaco.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's pretty much
country.
the same.
Yeah, yeah,
As in,
Monaco.
As in the fancy place, Monaco.
yeah.
Very nice.
The Riviera. It was
Sure.
very nice.
Hello.
How are you?
Did you have a
good cruise?
Oh, it wasn't a cruise. We flew in
Oh,
to Nice and then, or Nice, whatever you want to call it, and then drove to Monaco.
Oh.
Yeah.
you
So,
said my backup.
it was good.
glasses.
it was very good. Very good that
Been forgetting my glasses
wouldn't
for the
mind
last
moving
few
there.
minutes. I'm squinting.
Oh,
I'm getting a headache right
No,
now.
no.
I put it on my table that I
it
work.
was really
And then I
nice.
leave,
The
I
people
pick
were
up my
really nice. The
sunglasses.
food
Good to
was
have a backup.
amazing.
I just buy these.
Really?
I mean, these
I
are.
never
Just Adidas?
liked
Oh, I
bread,
just get like
but
yeah,
they have
$30
bread like
for
for
6 of them
breakfast.
on Amazon.
Like, you just have a
Get
piece
because
of
I
buttered
forget
bread
it,
and
and
you
then
can
I'm
I have
put
contacts for
jelly
my-
on it
for
or
my regular.
whatever.
Probably.
I could have
Well,
ate the
it's
entire
just
loaf of
absolutely-
bread. I was
it's
like
fine.
feeling like,
For
does
me, the
everybody
problem is
notice
I
how
have
much
near
bread
vision
I'm
and run a
eating?
distance
You
vision
know,
and
or
all.
can I just
I
keep
can see
going?
together and
You
I get
know?
I can
Yeah.
still read.
So how
but
are
I
you
get a
doing?
blistering headache.
They wanted.
And then in between
tried
there,
to
I'm
do one
taking care of
contact
my mom.
for distance
and
and
I
one
think
for
about
near.
you, and I think about
It-
my mom is younger than
it
you.
affected my
and
distance,
She
and I'm
can't
like,
do
I
a
can
quarter of
see
what
the
you
bottom
do.
numbers on that clock over there.
It
Because
is. Physical
just that.
therapy now coming to her apartment at Waldenwood.
69 degrees,
And
right?
she's like, it is helping. I didn't think it could help. So I
Noted.
call her this
Nope,
morning.
it's blood.
Well,
A
I mean, I
meeting
have
I
glasses.
had this
I
morning
don't have my
got
contacts in. I can't
delayed.
see past
So
the
I'm like,
tape.
I'm gonna call her and find out how she's doing, if she woke up today. And she answers
we
the
get older,
phone.
right?
Oh
and
my
she
goodness,
says,
I'm like,
tell ya.
I search
I
my bag. I'm frantically
canceled.
searching.
You're
I'm
gonna
like,
give me a
I pick
hard
up the
time
sunglasses.
about
So the moment I pick up a
Yeah,
pair
that's
of
cool.
glasses,
That's
I'm like,
fine.
yeah, I have
I could
something.
probably
I'm
do
like,
the other device.
no, those are the sunglasses. Where are the glasses?
Yeah, exactly.
Who are you out? I'm like, what did
dear.
I do? And
Bernie?
she's like, you took me to that doctor appointment. I'm like,
Is Bernie not going to be here?
wheelchair. Get out of the
not
car,
gonna be here?
out of the wheelchair, into my car. I bring a wheelchair.
Well, making the motions. Now I got her back.
Yeah. So but I think when she lost her husband, I think is when she really
No.
like.
But,
But-
no.
But Sherry, what do you? What do you
That's good.
think it is? What's that?
No, what does the doctor say? What kind of how many medications is she on? You need someone that can look at the coordination of all the drugs she's taking together.
That's really
One of them is striking her down.
And we were
So-
talking about that.
Do that.
I know she's on antidepressant, and that antidepressant is supposed to like make her like a little.
chopped off. So not willing to.
She just
think
says
that is what I said last time.
weak. And then I took her to. She said her leg hurt. And I'm like, well, Mom, we should go get the leg checked out. Mom, we should
Yeah,
go get
that's
the
a
leg
board
checked out. Mom, we should go
recommendation.
get the leg checked out.
And
But
it would
I'm just
be
a dumb kid.
Yeah.
So she falls in her apartment. And so I said, you know what? And she says, my leg
Yeah.
hurts. So I'm like, well,
To
you know what?
recommend-
I'm going to take you to the emergency. So I take Tom, get her, I take her to the emergency.
We always gotta check our name tag, right?
Just for public hearing, we'll probably move through the rest of the agenda fairly quickly.
Thought that was from like her upper thigh all the way past her knee.
I thought you might have remembered.
Zoning appeal, there's some turnover always, but
Racing through it. I was gonna pull it up and pull up your text verbatim and print it out,
Good.
but
Hey,
then
I want. No, I'm here.
Oh, yeah, okay. Who said they're not gonna be here today?
Bernie,
end up writing it in ODF.
I wanted to apologize. I hope I didn't.
Come on. You know me well enough. It was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious.
Okay.
My kids would have enjoyed the joke.
You know, show me every document that has a good
It was totally funny. It was totally funny.
But I don't have such a good word for it. So and then I'm like, oh, what date is
That never
it
stopped.
on? And then like, you know what? It's almost 5. I gotta go.
Spending 2 days with her from
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Good.
You see all these agenda changes?
Oh, Dan talked to me about him on the phone, and
Catch up. Okay.
about an hour ago.
Have to get up. I have to get
You're good.
Yeah. Went to mow the lawn yesterday. I put new blades on, and I have one spindle that was a little worn.
I told her she should go.
Hit a root that's sticking up. No, blade came off. Didn't break the blade.
I love it.
So I didn't really finish the lawn.
Right. I had
Probably had,
spindle
say,
that
10 pairs of
blade attaches
something,
to.
you know, like out.
I couldn't put the blade back on,
Oh no.
so I had to get a new spindle. So I
So
put
I right
spent
online right
yesterday
there, I
afternoon trying to
ordered
get the spindle.
the same exact
Kind of
piece
impact wrench do you
in
get?
like different colored
not a
shirts,
big
but,
enough one,
you
so
know,
I
like the
borrowed
same
my
yeah,
blades last
yeah.
night.
Yeah,
I
she did
always
get
had one
excited
that hooked
about
onto
that.
my compressor, but I bought, or my dad got me for my birthday.
Oh,
this
'cause
one
it-
cheap one from Menards that uses cordless.
But
It works battery.
my daughter-in-law was going through that with her mother, and finally they got she's not in assisted living, which is where that's going to be the next step. But they've hired people to come in
Recommend
and
wholeheartedly El Chicorino.
or because Chef said you're not going to
I
kill
don't
my
need
bike,
it that often.
you know.
When I do, my buddy, I was at my buddy's last night, and
I don't know. I just know that if I was home every day, I'd sit on my
he
bus.
has a,
And then when you don't move,
geez, we do all half.
Oh yeah,
Oh, see,
half
that's
inch in
that
fast
doesn't help the blood move
Electric
or
or-
anything else.
No, battery.
battery. Yeah, that's cool.
That's too bad. But she needs to go start
like
going out to
NASCAR
breakfast with her friends.
go to the movies,
Hit
they
that
have
thing
like
and
a
it.
movie thing.
I go with a bunch on Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
Motions, but I go
Oh, Mrs. Bud.
Well, Brian, come on, I'll be darned.
So we played a little phone tag this afternoon.
Yeah, yeah. And I was taking Spanish classes, so I would go to Spanish classes.
I talked to Jeff yesterday, and then when you called, I wanted to talk to you, and then Dan called, and then.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I had, yes.
I figured you didn't need to talk to me.
It's like here.
Well, I do need to talk to you.
No, but you know what I mean.
I figured, because Jeff had explained to me yesterday what your concerns were and
there
his
wasn't a
concerns.
thing here.
And then I went through the packet this afternoon and was going through it, and yeah, there's a lot of concerns.
Yes.
You're welcome.
I'm sitting here chatting.
In the Senate, it's 1 minute. Goes on the board and everyone is,
Nice.
they're on it, they're in, they're out. People show up at the time it's supposed to start.
After you called, I'm like, okay, I gotta look at this now. No, because I was planning that. I had it blocked in my schedule to review some stuff. Yeah, that's all right. I was gone for a couple days and picked up my packet last night. So.
Now you get to talk. I still like that clock, Sherry.
Me too, because you could see.
See,
There's no reflection, there's no 1 hour off, it's.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
that just puts another layer of
not on the-
pressure. You know?
Agenda and.
It's
Your son is
Okay, welcome to the Charter Township of Van Buren Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. At this time, I'm calling the meeting to order. Could we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, could we have a roll call, please? Here.
Here.
Commissioner Paul,
Here.
Commissioner Atchison,
here.
Commissioner Creel. Creel,
I'm sorry.
and Board Rep Bud,
here.
and Commissioner Grant is excused.
Okay, thank you. We have before us an agenda. Do I have a motion concerning the agenda?
Mr. Chair, we have a recently updated agenda that was on the desk, and I would move to approve the agenda as revised.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jarr, support by Commissioner Bud for approval of the agenda as revised. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We also have before us the minutes of the meeting of May 22nd, 2024. Do we have a motion concerning the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the meeting from May 22nd, 2024, as submitted.
Motion by Commissioner Jarr, supported by Commissioner Creel for approval of the minutes. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving forward, I don't see any correspondence or announcements. Now for the public hearing. We have a public hearing before us. It's case 22-015, Pulte Homes of Michigan, Cedar Chase, special land use request, public hearing. A request by the applicant, Pulte Homes of Michigan, LLC, on behalf of Cedar Chase for special land use to amend an existing planned unit residential development, PUD, PRD, agreement originally approved for the Walden Woods Apartments by removing 31.85 acres of property from the PUD at the northwest corner of Morton Taylor and Tyler Roads within the existing Walden Woods PUD and establishing a new planned residential development, PRD, proposed for condominium ownership. The applicant proposes to construct 88 detached single-family dwelling units on an individual site condominium lots. The request will require amendment of the existing PUD and preliminary and final PRD approvals and preliminary and final site condominium plan approvals. The property is zoned R1B, single-family residential district. The site is located at parcel ID number V 125-830-040-99-0002 704, excuse me, and V 125-830-040-99-0002 705 on the north side of Tyler Road between Morton Taylor Road and Walden Boulevard. The subject includes 31.81 gross acres of property, 28.35 net site acreage. At this time, I need to open the public hearing. Do I have a motion for?
Mr. Chair, I move to open the public hearing.
We have a motion and a support to open the public hearing. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is open. Do we have any comments from the public?
Chair, if I may, state a few comments to start this portion of the agenda.
Sure.
tonight. Okay,
Director Power, you have the floor.
thank you very much. To introduce this project, I do have an image on the screen that shows the proposed layout at this point, which is for 88 units, detached, single-family residential, site condominium-style units, along with an amendment to a planned unit development agreement for the Walden Woods project at the northwest corner of Tyler Road, Morton Taylor Road. And what I would like to suggest is that the applicant has a chance to provide a broad overview of the project as part of the public hearing, not to go into detail about site plan items, but just to provide a broad overview of their proposed project to provide some information for the public so they, if there are anybody in the audience or on Zoom who would like to speak, they can have a little more background before they make comments. So if you don't mind, I would like to invite Mr. Bush or his associate with Atwell to provide a presentation. Disconnect.
That works with the chair.
So I think you'll need to just plug in, or you can do that Windows K. No problem.
Very good, and thank you. Good evening. Appreciate the early hour of the meeting. It's not usually typical. I appreciate it. I like that. We're here already. My name is Bill Anderson. I'm with Atwell. We are the planners and engineers for the project. My address is 311 North Main Street out of Ann Arbor. Matt Bush is also with us. He's done a bulk of the work working with your staff and consultants, along with Pulte representatives, Pulte Homes of Michigan representatives. So we're here to present the project and then certainly address any questions you have. We're talking about tonight, of course, our proposal, Cedar Chase, which is currently a planned residential development. It's a proposed single-family residential community in the existing PUD. We've had several meetings with staff and consultants, and we're here tonight kind of to present to the Planning Commission our project. Just a quick overview. As you know, it's on the northwest corner of Tyler and Morton Taylor Road, 31.6 acres, and it's part of the Walden Woods PUD. There's public sewer and water at the property. There's a small county drain that kind of bisects the property, flows north on Morton Taylor Road. It's mostly cleared land with some trees along the county banks. And we're surrounded by about 300 home sites to the north and west, which is the Walden Woods residential community, right? Taylor Road is paved. It's a Wayne County public road, and Morton Taylor is currently an unpaved, kind of a dirt gravel roadway. So that's where we are. The property itself, it's part of an existing PUD, as was mentioned earlier. I believe it's from the 1990s. It allows for up to 200 multifamily attached units. The plan in the recorded development agreement had 126 attached residential units, but it really follows the RM multifamily zoning. We have a sample of what 200 units could fit on the property as well. And the property also includes currently 10 acres of commercial, could provide about 100,000 square feet of retail under your C1 zoning. So that's what's zoned and approved out here today. Again, we met with staff and consultants multiple times, and we understand the township's open to single-family homes on all this property. The biggest discussion we've really had is the process. What process to move this thing forward? The township didn't want to do a simple amendment to the PUD agreement, it didn't seem, and they requested a new PRD, which is a planned residential development for the subject property. So that is where we are. Attached is our proposed plan. We're proposing 88 single-family homes, which is significant less density than the currently approved PUD, which again allows for up to 200 attached units on the property plus the commercial. These are going to be for sale single-family Pulte homes. Our typical lot size is a 50-foot width and a 120-foot deep lot. The homes are offset along the frontage. It's hard to tell here, but we have some offsets which will create quite a bit of interest as you drive through the community, working with your folks. We varied the front setback, but every other lot has a 5-foot variable. So our front setback might be 30 foot on one lot, and the next one might be 35. So you got some variability of how the homes will lay out along the street. We also varied the lot width and the building separation. Every fourth or fifth lot, it's a 55-foot wide lot. We got a 20-foot between the building. Again, all in the interest of providing some interest as you go through the community. Pulte Homes, and this is an important point, Pulte Homes is going to be the land developer and the home builder. And that's not typical, but it's a real advantage to the community and to the neighbors. They're here today. Paul Schick is sitting here today. He's in charge of land development for the project, and he'll be here when the last home is built and the last bit of grass is built and the sidewalk's built. So it's going to be their project from start to finish. As you look at the layout, we got the home architecture I'll talk about shortly, but we got the semi-looped treed road with connections to both of the public roads, at Taylor Road, Morton Tyler Road. We have a cul-de-sac, which has about 30 homes on it, which is a nice desired living location for a lot of residents. We got 2 parks delineated with the asterisks there. There's a pocket park off of Tyler Road. It's got some bench seating, trash receptacles, etc., sitting area. And then we have a play area in the core center area, which will have a play structure, some bench seating, some circular walk area, and the walks will actually interconnect between the 2 parks as well. So we get significant open space throughout our proposed community. We get sidewalks and paved pathways throughout. And of course, as I indicated, public utilities. As you can see listed on this slide as well is public benefits. We're proposing to pave Morton Taylor Road. We know everyone's pretty excited about that. And that's from Taylor Road intersection all the way through the entrance to the Walden Woods access point there. I believe it's Heatherfield Boulevard. So that'll be a Wayne County road improvement, part of our project. We're also doing a county drain clean out over the years for the drain. A significant amount of sediments built up from some of the upstream properties. We're proposing to clean that out throughout the property. We have a fair amount of open space, 33% open space on the plan. It's over 9 acres of open space with active and passive open areas, as I discussed. Again, two park areas within the project. And then pedestrian connectivity, which is pretty important these days. We got proposed sidewalks on both sides of our road throughout all our road network. And then we also proposing all the perimeter sidewalk along both the primary corridors, which will provide a sidewalk connection to the west and to the north. So it'll provide quite a bit of new walking for the existing residents of Walden Woods. As far as the home elevations, we're proposing a modern, like a farmhouse style homes. They're gonna have like a black and deep gray colors with various shades of brown, navy blue materials, and off-white trim accents. It's a very custom home looking style. Some of the exterior features that are used in the farmhouse are rustic barn door style garage doors with a lot of texture to them, varied home window placements and size, and window shutters accents. There's exposed beam A-frame accents on some of the roof eaves. Vertical siding patterns are in some of the home styles. Varied roof styles and pitches are part of that style home. And then, of course, we have covered front porch options with a variety of porch column details provided. So we're pretty excited about the home product. There's 2 slides here, and I believe in your packet they were included as well, along with some of the layouts. Home sizes will range from about 1,800 to 2,600 square feet. And then we think, obviously the market will dictate, but we're probably starting in the mid 300s with delivered homes and probably in the mid 400s once options and upgrades and such are done. So that's really the overview we wanted to share with you tonight. And again, we're certainly open to any feedback you folks may have about our single-family development proposal.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the audience? This is the time for the public. It's a public hearing. Please, if you feel free, step up to the microphone, state your name, address, and feel free to make a comment. We're happy to listen. Anybody speaking on Zoom?
I should mention, we do have one remote participant on Zoom. If that participant would like to make any comments, we can bring you in. If you raise your hand, enter something into the chat or the Q&A window, or dial *9 if you're calling in, we're happy to hear your comments on this project. So that would be for the attendee on Zoom out there. If you would like to make comment, please do. Otherwise, it looks like, oh, I do see a hand raised, so I'm going to allow Sarah to speak. And let's see, it's been a little while since we've done this, so I'm sure I can lower that hand and bring her in. Hi, Sarah. I think you can speak now. I'll try to keep the microphone right up against.
Hi.
There you go. Hello.
Hello. My name is Sarah Ciccarelli. Do you want me to state my address?
Please.
Okay. I live at 43941 Tyler Road. So I'm basically across from your proposed subdivision space. So I would just like to say, first of all, I'm just kind of opposed to more development on Tyler Road in general, as it's already quite a busy road. I know we have the other facility coming in at the opposite corner, going to bring a lot more traffic, and this will add more traffic as well. But given that the development does go forward, I was just looking at your development plans and where you have the entrances, the proposed entrances, and let's see, I guess the one on Tyler, it's not, it doesn't look like it's directly across, but it's is pretty close. So, you know, almost directly across from where I live. So I'm not super happy about that. I don't know if you had any other plan options or whatnot, but I just want to say, you know, I'm not really happy with that. Yeah, I don't know if there's that work. Sorry, yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really know what else to say about it at this time.
Okay, thank you. I can tell you're a little nervous, and that was fine, Sarah. That we really appreciate.
I was planning on using your chat option, but it was disabled.
Oh,
I was gonna type something up, but I didn't have a chance to.
that
I will work on that, and also I will leave my contact information in some format here so you can get to it on the Zoom. In case you'd like to follow up with any additional comments, I'd be happy to distribute them to the Planning Commission.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
yes, thank you. We appreciate the information.
Sure.
Anybody else want to come in, make comments concerning this development? Anybody else?
I see no other Zoom participants.
Okay, at this time, is there anyone else? Okay, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Bud, supported by Commissioner Jar. All in favor, to close the public hearing, all in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We are closing the public hearing. Okay, moving ahead. Director Power, I see that we have eliminated item number 1. Then we're going to item 2, and just a presentation by you, I believe. Is that?
Yes, I am going to provide some comments on item 2, 3, and 4, and 5 for the Planning Commission's consideration, and a procedural recommendation on those items.
Okay, then I guess I need to announce item number 2, case 22015, Pulte Homes of Michigan, Cedar Chase, Walden Woods PUD amendment, a request by applicant Pulte Homes of Michigan LLC on behalf of Cedar Chase to amend an existing PUD agreement originally approved for the Walden Woods apartment by removing 31.85 acres of property from the PUD at the northwest corner of Morton Taylor and Tyler Roads within the existing Walden Woods PUD. The site is located at parcel ID number V12583 040990002 and V12583 on the north side of Tyler Road between Morton Taylor Road and Walden Boulevard. The subject site includes 31.81 gross acres of property, giving us a 28.35 net site acreage. So, with the presentation, Director Power.
Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission, there have been extensive materials shared with the Planning Commission for tonight's meeting and plans that you are certainly free to peruse. At this time, we have, as the applicant said, this has been a project that's been under review for quite some time. Staff and consultants have gone through the typical planning staff review process for this proposed project. What you see on your agenda is 4 actions that reflect our best assembly of the procedure for this project, which would be an amendment to the Walden Woods Planned Unit Development Agreement from 1994, which would exclude this area from that project, a proposed special land use approval for the Cedar Chase project as required for planned residential developments, which would be a recommendation to the board, a preliminary site condominium approval recommendation to the Board of Trustees, and a preliminary site plan approval by the Planning Commission. There have been extensive comments on these requests as a result of staff's review from the planning consultant, the township engineer, and the deputy fire chief. We have also been in recent conversations about some concerns that have been raised or questions that have been raised about clarifying these procedures and making sure that they're well understood and that all parts of each procedure is properly addressed. There are some items that we will follow up in that regard with the applicant in terms of clarifying what would have to be involved with the PUD amendment, as well as making sure that all the vital information is included on the plans for the actions on the 30-acre site for the PRD amendment, the site plan and site condo plan for that site. There have been some items stated regarding question regarding access specific to the cul-de-sac and the long cul-de-sac road, or not long, but the cul-de-sac road on the southeastern portion of the site, as well as just some requests for some additional clarification regarding justification for some of the PRD review standards and criteria. So all that being said, it is staff's recommendation that we don't necessarily get into the full details of the site plan review tonight. I would recommend, and from recent conversations today, the applicant has been amenable to withdrawing or postponing consideration on actions on those 4 action items under new business tonight to allow a little more time for staff and consultants to connect with the applicant and determine the best way to bring that information forward. And that may be at the direction of the Planning Commission. You may have some of these questions approached in maybe a work session or a joint meeting with the Board of Trustees at a later date that we can establish. There may be different ways to approach this and get all the questions out so that there's a more open dialogue about them before you're asked to make any votes on the project. And so our recommendation at this point would be, certainly it's a public meeting and open for discussion at the direction of the chair and the Planning Commission, but in terms of staff presentation, in terms of applicant presentation beyond what you just saw, and in terms of votes on those 4 action items, we would recommend postponing those until we have some additional direction and information for you.
Okay, thank you. That's my feeling, and if we go forward with this, can we postpone all 4 items with one motion, or do we need to deal with each one individually?
Erring on the side of caution, I'd recommend doing individual motions for those. You may be able to do either way, but just to say we'll get back to each of those. 4 motions would probably be appropriate here.
I feel that that's the best way to go from what I've looked through the plans and conversations I've had. I feel that postponement is the best. Other feelings from commissioners?
I think that's a good idea.
I agree with that. I think we ought to be clear about what it is we're postponing and waiting on. However, we can't just, it's not fair to the applicant, just say, yeah, we're gonna postpone it until, sometime. You need some guidance.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And in order to do that, I have some questions that I just would like to pose, and I don't think they're I'm not gonna do a deep dive into a site plan, but I didn't understand, if I may?
Yes.
I didn't understand, or at least when I was looking at this action item, I thought originally it was going to be a modification to the existing PUD. And it's not. And I'm very sorry that I didn't realize sooner what the approach was going to be, or we could have had this discussion sooner. When I'm looking at this, I see it as essentially 2 separate issues. One issue is the Walden PUD would like to get a modification, essentially permission to not build the apartments and not build the commercial, and to revert that parcel back to R1B so that it can be developed by, I presume, someone else, maybe sell the property. And currently they cannot sell the property because it's under a PUD. So in order to move that property along to a different developer, the PUD has to be modified. Is that correct? That's a fair statement?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. Super. So that is a completely separate issue. What would it do to the PRD if we were to remove those parcels from the existing PUD? Is there any PUD left? Is the remainder of the property under the PUD, has that already turned ownership over to the owners of the parcels and the HOA? Will the original Mr. Hayden Gregory LLC have anything to do with the PUD going forward if we were to amend it? Is an unanswered question for me. And that's a question that I would like to have the answer to. So that we know what we're going to do. It's entirely possible that the PUD just goes away if we waive that requirement. We can discuss what the requirements are for allowing that PUD to be amended. I know in the current development agreement held by Hayden Gregory, there's a requirement for paving, and it was to pave from Tyler up to Heatherfield? What's the entrance is Heatherfield, right? The Walden Woods? Yeah. And that was a sort of a condition on the original PUD. I don't know, and I would need staff to advise, what does that mean for us to remove that parcel from the PRD? Will the paving still happen? If we remove that parcel and that parcel is sold, will there ever be pavement going up to Heatherfield Drive from anywhere, be it the new property line or the intersection at Tyler Road? The issue of what happens to the paving requirement when the PUD is updated is an open question in my mind. I would ask if staff could also, I will make just a statement, I don't know if it's applicable, staff maybe could advise. Usually when we do a site redevelopment, say gas station or other similar use, if it hasn't been updated in a while, we usually hold them to current development standards during a redevelopment period. And I would say that this is a PUD that has been around for 30 years. What development standard would we end up holding the remainder PUD, if there is any PUD, what standard would they be held to?
So if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes,
So this is an amendment of the Walden Woods PUD. Removing this corner parcel from the PUD will not eliminate the PUD status of Walden Woods, because under the PUD, it was not merely the multiple family and the commercial component, there were deviations and modifications granted. So if we look at Walden Woods, the rest of the Walden Woods PUD, that probably does not strictly conform to the R1B standards either. They have already taken advantage of the deviations that were granted to them. So when the PUD is amended for Walden Woods, you're essentially removing this portion of the land from that original PUD agreement. You would have to amend the master deed and the Exhibit B that is recorded along with it, which would correspondingly also modify the agreement. You're very correct. I don't know the answer to the question as to what happens when the paving was conditioned upon the original owner, and I have no idea if they are even in the picture at this time. Probably not, after how much time has passed.
Could be, and if I may, that was the point. And we're looking for direction as to when we could pick this back up. I think that we need staff to advise us on what happens if we choose to modify this PUD, not just to the parcel in question, but what happens to Walden Woods. And we need to make sure, in a PRD, we may have open space requirements in a PRD that have been counted towards the conformance of the PRD. I don't know how much of the open space requirement in the PUD is being counted against this subject property. If we take the subject property out, does the remainder of the property suddenly not meet its required open space? I'm not asking for an answer. I'm saying it's a question that I would like to see some analysis done on the Walden Woods property before we agreed to pulling the parcel out. I can understand why we want to pull the parcel out. I can understand why the applicant wants to pull the parcel out. I can understand why the owner wants to pull the parcel out. But we have a responsibility to do due diligence on it for our community. And that's what I would ask for. So if I were to make a motion, I would want to postpone any further discussion on whether or not to pull the parcel out of the PUD or modifying the Walden Woods PUD based on a staff report from staff or help from the applicant, some report stating what the ramifications of doing so were, both to the parcel in question and the parcel that remains. And if I could get just some clarification on that, then I'd be willing to consider moving forward on the question of amending the Walden Woods PUD. Also, last bit, the Walden Woods PUD this should really be a request from the owner, right? I mean, is the owner of the PUD Hayden Gregory Corporation?
Are they even in the picture? Mr. Anderson?
Pulte has interest in the property. I don't know exactly who the current owner is.
So that's, in my mind, that's a problem, that we're asking to change an agreement with an owner and we don't know where the owner is.
Typically, when the residential portion of a PUD is built, the ownership is transferred when a certain number of lots are done to the HOA. So technically, the owner of the PUD documents is now the homeowners association
And
for
I
Walden
know that
Woods.
according to the agreement that I read, that if it was true that on January 31st, 2003, there weren't 150 houses completed, the entire PUD is null and void. And then, I don't know, is this PUD still in effect? This is the report that I want to say. I would like to see the report, yes, it's still in effect. Yes, we can modify it. This is what will happen to both parcels. And that's what I would be looking for as a term of a postponement for this.
I think it would help to get a little bit insight from the township attorney also, because we're talking about modifying a recorded legal document. so-
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
think the attorney needs to weigh in.
Mr. Chair, could I ask,
Yes.
to the applicant, does what I said make sense, sir?
Yeah, I would appreciate the township attorney weighing in on this. I think it could be as easy as amending the PUD.
Yeah.
Changing multifamily and retail to this, and the owner or the representative from the owner and the township can do it. It's a legal agreement between two entities. But certainly the township attorney weighing in and giving us some procedural process forward would be great. But if you had any feedback on the plan, do you like it, love it, hate it, go away, whatever, I'd appreciate hearing that too.
Well, I don't have any more on the topic of the Walden Woods PUD modification, and if we wanted to, hopefully there's more discussion, but I could certainly make a motion for postponement on those terms I discussed, if it was appropriate to do it at this time.
Sure. If I could just, I appreciate the request for more information, and I do not intend to answer them now, except to shed a little bit of light on the first question, which kind of relates to the last question about ownership of the existing PUD. That was one of the first questions that came up 2 years ago when this project was first presented to the township, is could this be as simple as a amendment to the existing PUD? I did have contact on that question with the township attorney at that time. I don't know if we have any kind of a memo, but that's certainly something we can work on getting. The guidance that I received around that time was because there is not unified site control, because there are two different ownership entities between these two different prospective projects, they can no longer be united under one PUD, broadly speaking. So I'll try to get some more specifics on that answer and make sure that that's correct, and certainly work on getting an opinion, a legal opinion from the township attorney on that. But that was the broad reason why this got separated out into a separate PRD project.
Through the chair. And I think along with that for me was the fact that in our paperwork, it said that they wanted to amend it, but the new acreage was going to be under a new PRD. It wouldn't be connected at all. So who has the right to sign off on it for Walden Woods? I don't think we know that either.
To exclude the remaining acreage.
Right.
We'll find out.
Because clearly, if I may, as far as I can see, Hayden Gregory LLC is still responsible for the existing PUD agreement. Whether or not that company exists, I don't know. But that's what the paperwork seems to say. And,
Right.
and they're the ones that are going to need to agree to changing we need a lawyer. That's what I'm saying. We need a lawyer.
I'll say that.
I like lawyers.
They just cost money.
We want to do it right for the community and for the applicant.
Absolutely, absolutely. A question I have is, once that we go through this, and this comes away, that new parcel that's there will be away from the PUD completely. So if something else would happen, it could never go back to what that PUD was, right?
No, it can't. We no longer permit PUDs in the township. We do only PRDs, planned residential. We no longer allow for developments that have a commercial component attached to it. So it will remain as a standalone PRD by itself. It can never go back and join again with Walden Woods.
Okay,
It would
thank you.
As a point of clarification, the property would revert to R1B, and then someone could petition to get a PRD. But that doesn't mean the PRD would necessarily go through. If Walden Woods were to have their PUD amended, the parcel would become straight up R1B. You could build a site condo on it, you could subdivide it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a PRD with modifications, correct?
Correct.
Thanks.
Through the chair. So, I mean, I think I'm just sitting here listening, right? And trying to, trying to get it all. I think all these questions, great questions, and I think postponing it is absolutely appropriate, because there are too many questions for me to make a judgment, if you will, yay or nay, right? Whether this one legally can be removed from the PUD, if the PUD even exists. Because it's been 30 years and all the houses are built, and is this the association property now? I mean, so I think postponing it until we get more information from either the applicant or staff, more direction, 100%, great idea.
Any others, commissioners? Comments?
Through
Okay,
the chair.
Commissioner
Just,
Richardson.
Mr. Anderson, you had mentioned you wanted feedback.
Yes, please.
Looking at the proposed PRD plan, which is probably going to be scratched. I love everything. I love, no. I love the proposed PRD public benefits. You know, the paving of Morton Taylor Road, you know, cleaning out the drain. I don't know how you got approval to do that, but we can't. The open space, 33%, and the, you know, having all of it, I love it. Absolutely love it. So thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, just
Yes.
to add a little bit to the previous conversation, if the information that you get back from township staff and attorney speaks and addresses the question about how this can be split off from Walden Woods, and then the applicant is making this as a standalone PRD. And as they come under a standalone PRD, like you said, the underlying zoning still is R1B. So the applicant has submitted an alternate plan. Typically, whenever you propose a PRD, you're supposed to show what will happen if you just straight plat it under the existing R1B. And that shows you just, when you develop a parcel under a straight shot zoning, there is no requirement for open space. None of that is required. It's just platted lots. They can just put it in. So that is one of the requirements of a PRD approval. You have to show what happens under a conventional style of development, and that's where the public benefit comes. What is the township getting in order to allow you to deviate under a PRD with all these modifications? I mean, what are we getting out of it if it's not going to be straight R1B? And that's what the applicant will be trying to demonstrate as part 2. So I think that's what Mr. Anderson is looking forward. If the first part of the question with Walden Woods should be addressed, the second part of the question, if this is a standalone PRD, is there, since staff has worked so long, that's the only reason I'm submitting it, is there anything in this plan that is something that is a serious cause for concern right off the bat, so that is something we can work on? So we are not trying to guess where to go from here.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you.
Commissioner Jarrett.
As part of the addressing Ms. Krishnen's comment, you know, we have this other item that we then have to also postpone. I'd like to bring that up as terms of postponement for the second item, so that we have it clear that if the land split happens, then we can talk about the potential of a PRD and special use, and what it would take for us to be able to do that, including, hey, we need to know that you can split the land off in the first place. So my plan was to address that in the next item, and it's absolutely apropos to it. We can't just leave the applicant hanging. It's not fair.
I'd be surprised, though, I don't think the owner, and I won't speak for the owner, but I don't think the owner would just dissolve the PUD and have nothing, whatever that is, and then sell this to an applicant and see if this gets done. Because he has a PUD right now, and he's got 10 acres worth of retail he can put on the corner, which is pretty valuable, and he's got up to 200 units. I don't think he'll do that and come under some redefining R1B. I don't know where R1B is in the mix. If you look at his PUD, it says, I got multifamily and I got commercial, and that's what he has today.
Yeah, I understand that.
To concurrently change it, I think that's a concurrent movement. We got to figure out how to do that.
We would not forget that, I don't think, Mr. Chair.
No.
Because, of course, you know, the current owner wanting to sell the parcel would almost certainly be contingent on a better development offer than he's already got under his PUV, or she, I don't know who owns it.
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely, that would be a consideration. And that's what we want to make sure, that when we're doing these, it's all contingent on a chain of events happening. We want to make sure that the chain of events is well understood and documented.
Right.
So,
Right.
Mr. Chair, could I entertain a motion for postponement of this item?
I would
Would you?
entertain.
Mr. Chair, I would move to postpone action on the recommendation for Walden Woods PUD amendment until such time as staff and the applicant can report on the validity of the current PUD, the effect that the removal of the parcel from the PUD will have on the conforming status of the modified remaining PUD, both with respect to past and current PUD standards, that the status of any pre-existing performance bonds are known, specifically regarding the paving, that the requirement for paving is reviewed by our township legal staff, and there's one more thing, I can't remember it. I think that's pretty good. I submit that humbly for your, for your support.
Okay, we have a motion on the item to postpone, as stated by Commissioner Jar, and motion made by him, and support by Commissioner Creel. Can we have a roll call vote on this, please?
Chair Cullen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jar,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Atchison,
Yes.
Creel,
Yes.
Treasury Bud,
Yes.
Okay, postponement is approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on, item number 3 on the agenda is again Pulte Homes of Michigan special land use for the establishment of a new planned residential development, PRD. A request by the applicant, Pulte Homes of Michigan, LLC, on behalf of Cedar Chase for special land use approval to establish a new planned residential development, PRD, proposed for condominium ownership, per the requirements of section 6.219 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. The applicant proposes to construct 88 detached single-family dwelling units on 31.81 gross acres, 28.35 net acres of property. And the site is located at the given parcels that we have stated twice previously. Do we have consideration questions from the commissioners concerning this item?
Through the chair,
Director Power?
broach the topic of the PRD special land use in relation to one item that our planning consultant mentioned in the first topic, which was the idea of a by right land division or subdivision style development. The parallel plan was mentioned in that statement of the meeting tonight, and I just wanted to make sure everybody had a chance. I know that's in the packet, and it is part of these slides too. It might be helpful just for a visual reference, if nothing else. We've gone over what the basics of this plan include being a PRD, having some additional features with, of course, some slightly higher density than would be developed by right with land division or with a subdivision. But if we could just put the parallel plan on the screen to show what a more conventional style of subdivision would be, just as a point of reference, if you have that.
You call it parallel, but it's really an R1D plan.
An R1B plan.
Are you looking
I
at
think
it?
that, I
No.
think that would be, I seem to recall, it was the last slide. It might not be.
Yeah, I brought it. It's not seeing it, but I'm
Ah.
not. Hold that one second.
Oh,
I'll
that'll
figure out how to use my
do it.
computer in a minute.
It can be tricky, yeah. So that's the PRD plan, and then here's the parallel plan, just for a visual reference of what it would look like if it was kind of built out with that R1B subdivision style.
R1B plan, 74 home sites.
No open space through the chair, no open space.
No further comment from me. I just wanted to have a reference to what was discussed earlier.
Okay,
So,
commissioners, comments, questions, directions?
So, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much. I'll just say thanks to the applicant for making the parallel plan. Sometimes we get PRD requests or potential plans, and they don't bring the parallel plan. The parallel plan's important to the process because we have to review it as if it was the plan that was going to be built, and we have to accept that that is a valid R1B plan and that 74 single-family detached units could be put on the parcel. The reason the Planning Commission has to do that is because if you want a PRD that has a density adjustment, and I believe you're asking for 88 houses instead of 74, there are rules in the zoning plan and our ordinance that dictate how many extra houses you are allowed to put into a PRD above and beyond the number in the approved R1B plan. So a lot of the math hinges on that 70, on everyone agreeing that that 74 is a valid number for an R1B.
I would tell you that's not a parallel plan for this property, though. This
Okay.
property is zoned multi-RM and C1.
Okay.
We prepared this plan, but this is not zoned R1B. So
Through the chair?
Yeah.
Just real quick, so just so I'm clear in my head. And I'm looking at staff for this, if action item number 1, the amendment to the PUD, goes through as proposed, then it is R1B. It is not that current zone of residential, multi-tenant residential and commercial goes away. So if you get the first step, then it is R1B. Is that a true statement?
I think so.
Typically, when a PUD is approved, the zoning on the property changes to PUD zoning.
So is there no, so, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So the parcel zoning is PUD. That is the zoning. It's neither RM nor C nor R1B at that point. The question here is, if this is taken out from the PUD, Walden Woods PUD, does it revert back to the original R1B zoning? I don't know if the answer is that clear-cut, because in terms of a conditional rezoning, it's very clear. You violate the terms of a conditional rezoning, it'll automatically revert back. In case of a PUD, when you pull out a portion of the PUD that is approved for a higher density, I would need to check if it reverts back. That's not a clause we often go and look at in the zoning ordinance, so it's an interesting question. I've never had somebody pull out a portion of a PUD before, so I would hesitate to just directly give an answer, so please let us look into that to tell you exactly what, if it's pulled out of Walden Woods and if they can in fact amend it to pull out this 28, 30 acre parcel, what happens to the underlying zoning?
Mr. Chair, I would hope that that would be part of the report on modifying the PUD.
Thank you. I was just gonna say that.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, if I could continue, my assumption was that it would revert to R1B. We don't know if that's true. Well, so we'll let staff work on that one and figure out what it is. My assumption, however, is that it would revert to the R1B, and my assessment of this is not a parallel plan, but this is potentially a parallel plan. Hey, if it was a parallel plan, it's not bad. 74 is apparently, and you seem to have put 74 houses into some parts of the plan that might be allowed if it was R1B. So, that said, our PRD eligibility, one of our eligibility requirements for putting a PRD onto a parcel is that the parcel has to be at least 40 acres.
Right.
This is not a 40-acre parcel. That doesn't mean you can't do it, but that does mean that you have to submit some more paperwork to the Planning Commission for review, justifying why a PRD is called for on the smaller site. It doesn't mean we would say no to it, but it is an administrative step that has to be followed because we have to make a recommendation to the township board, who can then grant the waiver for the size. And hopefully if we make the recommendation, the township board will go along with it. It usually goes that way, but it does have to happen as part of the procedure. Sir?
I want to interrupt just for a second as we're talking about this. If it does revert back to R1B, and you're showing 74 single-family detached units, on the plan for you, you show the McGlaury drain that goes through. I don't see it on here. It would go through. You would have to fill that drain in or culvert it or do something to it because you've got lots planned over top of that drain.
So through the chair, I can, and I'm sorry, Al can describe that as well. I believe they proposed with this plan to reroute the drain.
Yeah, we would have to enclose it or reroute it. That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
But I believe, Mr. Chair, that part of what the applicant has said is that, hey, one of the things they want to do is preserve that pre-existing feature, leave the drain in place as a water course.
Right.
Okay, plans are plans, that's good. The point is that, as you can see, if there is a parallel plan, it would have to pass through a site plan review. Limited, it's like a preliminary site plan review, but we have to accept that it's a valid R1B plan in order to determine how many single-family detached units could go on the lot. And then you get to see what kind of density arrangements you can put on there. But from an eligibility standpoint, I am so sorry, but that is what the ordinance says. I'm not making it up. So, and I'm trying to help you with if we are going to postpone your request, what would we need to see in order to hear it again? That's what I'm looking for. And also, master plan. I don't know, we would need to have staff look at it, but I know that the future land use map has that parcel listed as local commercial. The requirements for entertaining a PUD are that it's not supposed to go against the future land use map. However, again, there is a clause that says you can do it, but it needs justification, and it again needs to be written off by signed off by the township board. Finally, on the density increase, you are proposed 88 development units, and the parallel plan shows 74. There are, in our ordinances, a set of 6 criteria that if you meet the criteria, you can go up to 30% over that 74 units. That's for a total of 96 houses could potentially go on that site. And you want to go up to 80, that's about a 19% density increase, which means you have to meet the requirements of 4 out of the 6 points in the ordinance that would earn you your density bonus. I'm not going to go through whether your plan has met those or not. It's not a lot of point in doing that right now. Just know that that's part of the justification that you'd need to bring in order to, justify having that smaller parcel turned into a PRD. That's at this time is really all I can see that's preventing us from entertaining, a recommendation for the size waiver, and that's really the next part is the waiver on the parcel size. That's right. How I see it. Doesn't mean it's right, though.
If any others, comments? Anybody? Comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to postpone on this.
I would make a motion and definitely open for further discussion among the commissioners, but I would move to postpone action on the recommendation for a special land use for the establishment of the new planned residential development until such time as staff and/or the applicant can present a supporting case for eligibility in accordance with section 6.204C and E, that is size and the master plan, and justification for the proposed density increase in accordance with section 6206B. That's the 6 points that earn you your density bonus. Submitted for support.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, support by Treasurer Bud. Is there any discussion on the motion? I forgot that on the last one. Seeing no discussion, then could we have a roll call vote, please?
Chair Cullen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jar,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Atchison, Commissioner Creel,
Yes.
and Treasurer Butt.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, item number 4, Pulte Homes of Michigan, preliminary site condominium approval. A request by applicant Pulte Homes of Michigan LLC on behalf of Cedar Chase for preliminary site condominium plan approval to construct 88 detached single-family dwelling units on an individual site condominium lots. The request is subject to preliminary and final site condominium plan approval by the Planning Commission and preliminary and final site condominium plan approval by the Board of Trustees per section 6.110 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. The site is located at the previously given parcel ID numbers. Do we have any comments or discussion on this issue?
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of brevity, I'd say that, this item 4 and item 5 need to be postponed until such time as they've got a recommendation with regard to the waiver for the PRD eligibility. And I would be willing to make a motion in that general direction if there's no more discussion. However, I do want to speak out in favor of what I see in this site plan and the proposal. I think single-family homes by Pulte on that parcel would be great. I like the design. They look nice. There are some issues, some minor issues with the design, the brick, the architecture that you may need to look into to earn the density bonus. But just in general, I'm with Commissioner Atchison. I think it looks nice. I think it's going to be a really nice development. It would be a wonderful addition to our community. I'm sorry that the process is what it is.
Okay. Any other comments?
Thank you, Commissioner Jar. I do want to say that somebody brought up the master plan. Our master plan indicates exactly what this development looks like, more open space, smaller lots. So thank you for considering Van Buren Township.
Okay. Anybody else? Comments?
I'll make one final comment,
Sure.
Mr. Chair. I know that the township board has to sign off on any waiver for the size. I do like stacking some of these things up, so if the planning commission is convinced that we would recommend the size be waived, the size of requirement be waived, I would certainly be willing to consider the site condominium and the site plan simultaneously without necessarily having the waiver go through the board. So we don't have to wait for another board meeting if we get it. I want to speed it up. It doesn't need to
Move
go.
it forward at a faster rate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's my feeling. Yeah.
My only problem with that is I think the design has been something that everybody has fought with that long cul-de-sac. The fire marshal, everybody else has had a real problem with that, and we've tried to work that out. I'm not ready to approve anything to go to the board because whatever they do and however they do it is going to have to be approved by the county. So I would say, I don't want to see it take it to our board because I don't think those questions have been answered.
If I could just comment on that, the cul-de-sac length? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, our
Cul-de-sac,
cul-de-sacs.
is that what?
The length of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And getting the fire truck in, he knows he can get the fire truck in, however, the wheels are on the road. But the overhang of the truck is going to go over, so there can be no mailboxes or anything else on that cul-de-sac, or he won't get the truck in and around. The next problem that we've talked about is the fact, if the snow was plowed and it was there, he couldn't get that fire truck in there. We're very, very concerned that you could have 40 homes tied up that couldn't get anywhere because there is no emergency exit to get out for those folks.
Couple comments on that. Our road is proposed to be private, owned, operated. It'll be a 27-foot back-to-back. And that road and all the geometry associated with the road is literally throughout Wayne County, Oakland County, Livingston, and Wash. I mean, there's millions of homes with this exact roadway geometry. I'm very confident any fire truck apparatus can get in and out. So that's one. I'd be surprised if the fire chief had problems with the road geometry. Secondly, our length of our road is about 1,000 feet. Your ordinance allows up to 1,200 feet in road length for a cul-de-sac per se. And then the International Fire Code also allows this as well.
It's the turning radius that he had a problem with.
On the
And
cul-de-sac.
we've talked about it and talked about it, and if there was an accident at the very end, at the very beginning, going in, folks would not get out until whatever happened got cleared up. We don't ever want that to happen, but we always said we did not like the longer cul-de-sacs where people could not get out or move. Those folks are stuck.
I'm following the rules. That's all I'm trying to do. I do know our residents like cul-de-sacs. Their privacy, you don't get a lot of through traffic, so we're excited. I think there's a comment about mailbox. There'll be mail clusters. They're no longer doing individual mailboxes up by the road, the old school stuff, which I had at a couple of my homes. There'll be a clustered mailbox formation, so there'll be no obstruction. There's no overhead utilities, no mailboxes, none of that stuff in the right of way.
That'd be a matter for site plan review, I would think, wouldn't you, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
Yes, I would think that would come through in our site plan.
And for the recommendation of the
Well,
board, I suppose.
and we had quite a discussion on it the other day between folks involved, and so I know how concerned the fire chief is.
Okay.
Through the chair, I'm sorry to go back. Commissioner Jar, you mentioned the process of the size requirement going to the Board of Trustees and potentially
The eligibility waiver, I think is what it's called.
the eligibility waiver. So but then also this synchronizing the site condominium and site plan review steps. But with respect to that, were you indicating that you were looking for action from the Board of Trustees prior to considering on the size eligibility?
Sorry, let me clarify. What I was going to propose was that we postpone items 4 and 5 until such time as the Planning Commission has reviewed a request for and made a recommendation to the Township Board in favor of a waiver to the PRD eligibility requirements for the development.
Okay.
That's all. If we say, all right, we think you could put it on a 31-acre parcel, we think you're eligible, then we can start to consider items 4 and 5 as soon as we've said, yeah, you've met the eligibility. Items 4 and 5 being whether or not the condominium site is good and whether or not the site plan is good. All I wanted to do was be able to review them in the same meeting if we decided it was okay.
So Commissioner Jar, just for clarification, so under the PRD ordinance, one of the modifications that can be granted is for the size of the PRD area. So you want the size of the parcel to be removed from the rest of the deviations to be concerned, so that the eligibility can first be established before any of the other modifications are considered.
It really does not make a lot of sense to me to review a 31-acre site plan that PRD site plan that won't be allowed because you have to have a 40-acre site.
Okay.
So if the planning commission arrives at the conclusion that this 31-acre parcel, that would be okay for this PRD, then sure, let's talk about the site plan and let's talk about the site condominium parts. But until such time as we've determined that this is even a valid project, why are we talking about site plans and site condominiums? We don't even know if the land is available. So I would like to postpone the preliminary site condominium approval and the preliminary site plan approval until such time as eligibility has been determined.
I think that's a good idea. So we make sure that we know who owns what and who has say and who's gonna sign off and who's not gonna sign off, and it'll all be done.
Yes, that was my intent.
Yep.
Yep.
I would formally state that as a motion if that seemed like the appropriate thing to do, unless one of you guys would like to summarize.
So do we, any other comments? Then I'm willing to entertain a motion.
Move to postpone items 4 and 5 until such time as the Planning Commission has reviewed a request for and made a recommendation to the Township Board in favor of a waiver to the PRD eligibility requirements for the proposed development.
I would approve that with the exception, we probably should say 3 and 4 because we took item 1 was removed.
Chair, I would update that motion to say, I move to postpone items Pulte Homes of Michigan preliminary site condominium approval and the item Pulte Home of Michigan Cedar Chase preliminary site plan approval until such time as the Planning Commission has reviewed a request for and made a recommendation to the Township Board in favor of a waiver to the PRD eligibility requirements for the proposed development. Better?
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jarr, supported by Treasurer Bud, concerning a postponement of action items 4 and 5 by the agenda presented. Roll call vote, please.
Holland,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Powell,
Yes.
Commissioner Atchison. Yes. Commissioner Creel,
Yes.
and Treasurer Bud.
Yes.
Okay, so we hopefully have given you some sort of direction on what needs to move forward.
Hoping your attorney will provide some direction, actually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time, and we are excited to see what comes before us. Thank you. Okay, moving ahead. Item number 6 on the agenda is Norland Investment LLC, DeBuck's Corn Maze and Pumpkin Patch. Staff is requesting an extension to a previous 3-year temporary land use approval for agricultural tourism and recreation uses granted by the Planning Commission on June 23rd, 2021, not to exceed 1 additional year, to allow for the finalization of a pending text amendment to the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance to address agritourism uses and processing of a submitted site plan. The location is parcel number 83-121-99-0008-000, also known as 50240 Marts Road, and 83-122-99-0002-000. The subject parcels are located on the north and south sides of Marts Road between Heft and Rosenville Roads and are zoned AG, agricultural, and estate. Could we have a presentation by township staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request that was initiated by staff. I see some representatives of Norland Investments are here, the DeBucks, so I appreciate attending tonight. But the Plan Commission may recall that on June 23rd of 2021, there was a 3-year approval for a temporary land use at the DeBucks DeBucks Corn Maze site, which built upon what had been, I think, a 9-year or some longer period of time frame approval for the same site. And the idea was that we were going to allow the continuation of this operation that was a unique temporary land use with some controls on, reasonable controls on operations and land use for making sure that this was a safe operation that could continue without issues. And it was intended to give us time to develop our agritourism zoning ordinance. And I appreciate that we've been very deliberate in that ordinance creation, and there's been a lot of good feedback on that, especially in the last, I'd say, year and a half, with some input from the DeBucks. But that ordinance is not quite ready, and in fairness to the applicant, they did provide a new site plan for their operation with ample time to make this expiration period, I believe in April, somewhere thereabouts, a new site plan was provided, but staff has held back on actually processing that or putting it in front of you for a permanent site plan until we have an established agritourism zoning ordinance to review it within. So this is just a simple administrative request initiated by staff because it's really outside of the applicant's control at this point, just to extend the life of that temporary land use approval for at least 1 year, and hopefully we'll have ordinance well in advance of that time frame. So that's the request. I've provided the packet materials from June 23rd, 2021 in your packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Discussion. I apologize to the DeBucks. We're working on that ordinance. A couple of glitches came up, and
Good ones, though, Mr.
yes, that we caught that hopefully we'll be able to address when we get to old business. I'm excited. I've heard good things from people concerning what's going on out there, especially this year. Your lavender is doing well. I hear you had a tremendous deal with Tulip Festival, and so positive things. Is there any other commissioners with comments?
Through the chair, this sounds like a no-brainer.
That's for me too. That's
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm totally in favor, so.
Mr. Chair, is there any substantive change to the DeBucks operation in the last year that we need to be aware of? Nothing major, right? Basically,
no.
what we've
They
been-
just planted a bunch of tulips last year. That's all.
Oh, tulips, well, okay.
But-
I may have been the one that granted the 3-year extension, and I wish I'd have gone for 4 at the time, but certainly a 1-year extension is in order.
Yeah. So then is there anybody else? Comments?
Through the chair, seeing how we're going to be working so hard on the Pulte situation, should we do a 2-year extension with this?
Or, once the zoning ordinance is in place, what is their next step at that point?
We will have a formal site plan review process. With the way that this agritourism ordinance is structured, it may not be as regimented in terms of having civil engineer do every part of the plan, because there's a lot of moving parts of an operation like this. It may be a simplified version of a typical site plan review procedure, but it's likely to be a site plan review procedure without much in the way of engineering. And so it would be kind of a preliminary and final site plan review process bundled into one.
Chair, is it a special land use?
I'm sorry, it is also a special land use, which would require a public hearing and action by both the planning commission and the board, again, for a permanent solution for the site.
I think, Mr. Chair, I think a 1 year is probably better so that we don't have to confuse the issue of them getting their special land use and their permanent status going forward, which is why I think 1 year is probably a good idea.
Mr. Chair, I also want to add that this whole agritourism ordinance started because the DeBucks farm is so successful. So, like you said, we hit a minor glitch when we realized that we had to address some more things, which we hope to fix immediately. But once the ordinance is fixed and DeBucks go through the approval process, they will be kind of a benchmark of how new businesses should come in. If you extend it for 2 years and then we have somebody else coming in, it's difficult to point out, like, here is a successful example of when the ordinance is applied, how it's correctly done. So the ordinance will then not be implementable for a long time. I think after tonight, this should move really fast into being in our books. So it'll be good to have DeBucks as the first one to go through it and show us how it's properly done.
I agree, okay. And I,
Through the chair, it sounds like 1 year isn't good enough.
and I understand where you're coming from, Commissioner Hutchinson, that 2 years, this ordinance has taken us that long to get to this point. But it's just, I think it's just a couple of minor things left
So close.
to clean up, and then it goes to the township board, and then that's within a month or two of approval, and it's on the books good. Okay. So, do we have a motion?
You did the 3-year, go ahead and do the 1.
Well, I appreciate the honor of being able to make the motion. At this time, I'd move to grant the applicant Norland Investment LLC, DeBucks Corn Maze and Pumpkin Patch, an extension of the previous 3-year temporary land use, not to exceed 1 year, to allow for the finalization of a pending text amendment to the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance to address agritourism uses and processing of a submitted site plan. Support. Thank you, Commissioner Creel, for your support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner Creel. Do we have any discussion on the motion? None, roll call vote, please.
Holland,
Yes.
Chair Jar,
Yes.
Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Atchison. Commissioner Creel. And Treasurer Bud.
Okay, we've given you an extra year. Hopefully,
Next time, it'll be permanent.
next time it'll be permanent. Thank you. You guys have been tremendous with us, working with us, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Okay, moving on, old business. Zoning ordinance amendments, agritourism. Consideration of amendments to section 2.102, specific terms, 5.102, agricultural retail sales, 3.109, AG agricultural and state district, and 9.102, minimum number of parking spaces required of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance to provide regulations for agricultural tourism or agritourism. Presentation by the staff. Director Power?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record of tonight's meeting, we did receive a correspondence from Scott DeBuck regarding just having taken a look at this latest ordinance amendment, which I will defer broadly to our planning consultant to go over, but there was just one suggestion that they would like us to consider, that Mr. DeBuck would like us to consider, which is in the section that speaks to the other uses, section 6, uses 1 through 5 above may include any or all of the following ancillary agriculturally related uses and some non-agriculturally related uses, so long as the total site area occupied by these ancillary uses is less than 50% of the total area occupied by agricultural, retail, or tourism activities. Subsection A, playgrounds or equipment typical of a school playground such as slides, swings, etc., not including motorized vehicles or rides. They just suggested that we consider some language that appears to allow some flexibility with that. It says unless approved by the township. Now I will defer response on that or discussion until the Planning Commission discussion portion of this item, but that was the one suggestion or correspondence we got ahead of tonight, and that's been printed for your records. And otherwise, I will defer the updates since the April 10th meeting, or the April 10th hearing and the May 8th meeting to our planning consultant, Ms. Krishnan.
Thank you, Director Power, members of the commission. At the April 10th meeting, you got the full agritourism ordinance before you, and that time we had set forth the minimum lot size as 10 acres and a buffer width of 200 feet. The Planning Commission made a recommendation to approve the ordinance to the Board of Trustees, but at the public hearing, there was a resident who raised a concern about properties meeting the acreage size, minimum lot size, but not being able to meet the buffer requirements. After the meeting, we had an opportunity to get our GIS person to plot out all the parcels, ag parcels that are 10 acres or larger, and see how the lot widths fall out. And we found that that was a very valid concern. Putting those two big, some of the parcels are more than 10 acres, but they're so long and skinny, removing those 200-foot buffers with nothing to be allowed in them would essentially not allow them to have an agritourism. It would defeat the purpose of our ordinance. I brought that concern before you on May 8th, and you directed us to take a look at bringing some alternate language which might help address that concern. So in response to that, I have proposed an amendment to subsection D, which is supplemental regulations that set forth the minimum lot size, buffer width, and all. Under D3, the ordinance language that you had previously acted on read as a 200-foot open buffer shall be provided on all sides of the property not abutting a roadway. We are suggesting addition of a clause that says, for a property that meets the minimum lot size but has a width 500 feet or less, the buffer width may be reduced to no less than 100 feet if the Planning Commission finds that such reduction in buffer width would still meet the intent of providing protection for uses on the abutting parcels. The next line we deleted, the line previously said that agricultural, commercial, tourism, business activities shall not be allowed within the buffer area. Where possible, crops shall remain in this buffer area to help maintain the agricultural character of the area. We removed that sentence to add a new sentence saying the area within the buffer may be used for growing of crops, agritourism activities limited to UPIC operations, nature trails, or any such activities that in the determination of the Planning Commission helps to maintain the agricultural character of the site. In no case shall any agritourism activity be located closer than 50 feet from any property line. So the intent of the buffer was to protect the neighboring properties. Yeah. By saying you cannot do anything in it except grow crops, it sort of restricted the properties. UPIC farms are a form of growing crops. So as long as people are just walking and picking the crops, which is no different than any other farming operation where we would have people picking produce, it should be okay, as long as it's not within 50 feet. So that would still account for any noise that might be created by like maybe kids or families making a noise picking the stuff. So that should provide the protection. In the next subsection 4, we added in some clarification. The language previously read, buffer planting shall be provided along the property line where there is an abutting residence. We added in the word existing. This was based upon some discussion I had with Treasurer Budd also, that quite often it happens that the agricultural farm business or something gets established first, the residential uses come afterwards, and then the complaint goes the opposite way, that the farm is a nuisance. So the language clarifies it, saying that dwelling structures built on adjacent properties after an agritourism use has been established first can install a greenbelt buffer on their property. Right now, the ordinance says if there is an existing dwelling and you develop an agritourism business, you have to put in a greenbelt buffer between you and that existing home. But if the agritourism business is established first and then the home is built, the homeowner can go ahead and put in the greenbelt they want. It is not going to be the responsibility of the agritourism business after the fact to put in the greenbelt. I think that would be a very reasonable thing. After all, that's how it is done for every other use. So to penalize one particular use that you have to provide protection to all uses next to you, irrespective of whether you're there before them, does not make sense. So those are the two suggested additions, which I believe meet the intent of what the Planning Commission would like. I've still added clause so the Planning Commission can make a determination whether you're okay with it or not. And of course, there is the clause that Mr. Debak has suggested for you to look at in the previous one, and that is up to you if you would like to add that in too.
Through the chair, I'd like to raise a question that was raised by one of our commissioners, also just in relation to that last. With respect to existing dwellings, I think there's a good question about that, which is right to farm has some protections for those kinds of scenarios. This ordinance, if I am understanding correctly, and maybe Ms. Krishnan could also speak to this, Right to Farm doesn't necessarily capture all of these kinds of agritourism
Correct.
activities that we would be covering here. So this provides some extra protection for setting up next to agritourism, whereas there's already some state protections setting up to existing commercial farm operations.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any comments, questions?
Through the chair.
Commissioner Poole?
Just wanted to say thanks to staff for being patient, and this is what, third or fourth draft that we've seen so far, so we're close. Thank you to the Bucks for your help as well. I was on the initial subcommittee. I think Mr. Grant as well. I'm comfortable with these changes. I don't know if any of you guys have any positions on it, but I'm happy with it, and I think we're where we need to be.
Through the chair. Oh, go ahead.
Basically, just the same thing. Thanks to the committee. I think the little tough spots that we just handled will be fine, and I think we should move forward.
So just one question. I agree with the proposed language from Scott DeBuck, unless approved by the township, but should we have unless approved by the planning commission? Or should it just be generalized to the township and we follow our process? Do we need to clarify whether it can be approved by the planning commission and or recommendation to the township board, or can it be approved by the planning commission by itself?
I have a suggestion, maybe Vidya may have a better one, but unless approved, something to the effect of unless following findings of fact recommended for approval by the planning commission and approved by the township board of trustees, because remember, this will be a two-part planning commission and board action. So just something to kind of firm up that language. We can discuss how we would.
It does need to be approved by the township board?
Or recommended by the planning commission.
There's other language, and that's why I brought it up, because there's other language in here that says, planning commission can reduce the buffer width, right? So it specifies the planning commission can make that adjustment without having the applicant having to go to the board or the township board. And I just want to be consistent, right?
Yes.
So that's my only recommendation. I agree with the thought and the process around it, but I just want to make sure that if it's something that I don't even know what the term is, but our rules in the township, can the planning commission approve it, or does it have to go to the township board?
No, if I may?
Yes,
Commissioner
please.
Creel? I think it should be only the planning commission approving it, because the first time an agritourism business comes, it's a special land use. It will go before the board. And special land use is an umbrella use you're approving for agritourism. Every nuance of that agritourism use does not need to go back. Basically, the board is saying, yes, this property is good for agritourism uses. After that, any of the uses that are added should be only up to the planning commission, because you're the ones who evaluate the site plan. I don't think it makes any sense to, burden the board once again, because from the board's viewpoint, this is a agritourism use we have already approved. So unless it's a special land use again, it shouldn't be going back before them. I think it should be within the planning commission's purview.
Through the chair, I would agree with that. It doesn't need to come back to us again. I think the planning commission can handle that.
That's kind of what we're here for, isn't it?
Yeah,
All right, okay.
Yeah, I think giving the planning commission purview over that would be fine. If your business, if an applicant's business were to change, they would come back for a modification of their special land use. We would be able to then, at the planning commission level, say, okay, your 1/4 scale John Deere cultivator ride is approved without having to send it
As long
back.
as it's green and yellow, I don't care.
You're not a Massey Ferguson? Come on now.
It's gotta be John Deere green.
It's got to be green and yellow.
Yeah, I think that with that change to the language, it's good, and I do appreciate staff's wordsmithing is excellent.
Absolutely.
And I do like the blue, red, and the green. I was able to see it. It's made it clear. Thank you.
I learned that from Ashley Capital's fence coloring.
Okay, so are we
ready to entertain a motion?
Are we ready to entertain a motion as the ordinance is presented, or do we have to acknowledge that change?
should be acknowledged.
Okay, acknowledge that change, and then we can approve this
And send it to the board.
and send it to the board?
Yep.
Three changes to the buffer abutting the single-family residential and the third one based upon
Now, if I,
Buck's recommendation for planning commission input.
Yep.
if I make a
Yes.
motion, can I just say changes reflected in the June 4th McKenna letter? Or
And
should I
And
specifically?
the Buck one.
And the DeBucks letter.
With the approval by the planning commission.
Beat it.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
move to recommend that the Township Board approves the amended agritourism ordinance as appears in the McKenna letter dated June 4th, 2024, and the DeBucks email from Scott DeBuck dated Monday, June 10th, 2024.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could I amend the motion to include the actual text change for DeBucks?
Yes. Yeah, so the change for the Bucks email will be from section C6, playgrounds or motorized equipment, typical of a school playground such as slides, swings, etc., not including motorized vehicles or rides. We're adding unless approved by the Township Planning Commission.
I support that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Pohl and seconded by Commissioner Jar. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Chair Cullen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jar,
Yes.
Commissioner Paulo. Commissioner Atchison. Commissioner Creel.
Yes.
It's going to the Township Board. Now, they have to hear it twice before they approve it, or
Yeah, we approve, yeah.
it's got to take 2 readings?
Mhm.
So 2 meetings and then we're in.
Sorry.
Don't be negative, Commissioner. This time I think we've got it.
It wasn't negative.
Okay, that brings us to general discussions and updates. Director Power, do you have anything for us?
We will have a meeting on the 26th. Our planning consultant and staff have finally, I shouldn't say finally, we have a economic development plan and economic development strategy and marketing plan for the township, building on the efforts of the open house we had about a year ago. We've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort developing a really good document that lays out some redevelopment-ready sites and explores redevelopment readiness throughout the township. So we're really excited to present that, or have our planning consultant present that on the 26th. And that's the last major step toward redevelopment-ready certification, so that's very exciting. We are evaluating some other submittals, potential other pond application for an agricultural pond on Martz Road. A couple of other projects in the hopper, but probably won't be quite ready for the 26th. Although, of course, with the case that was before us tonight, we'll also be picking back up on that and just determining next steps with them. So we will be meeting on the 26th.
What about what I read in The Independent about Sheets and, was it Chick-fil-A?
So we have a formal planning and zoning application for Sheets. It's proposed at the southwest corner of Haggerty Road and Ecorse Road. We've been going through the full staff site plan review process for that. We have, it's basically one of those, if you remember the development and planning portal map that has been created, it's just one of those white dots on the map of not quite at the planning commission for preliminary site plan review yet, but we are reviewing it, and it's likely to go for a public hearing as soon as the second Wednesday in July, depending on our final staff review of that. And then with respect to Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A had inquired about a property in the township on Belleville Road. We only got to the point where we've had some initial review of some traffic study questions, and we were soliciting feedback. I've answered a lot of questions about the site and about the review process, and we've had our consultants answer some as well. So that's just something that's been part of, yeah, some of the billings and some of the things our consultants have been involved with, but we don't have a formal planning and zoning application for Chick-fil-A at this time, just some initial fact-finding requests from them.
Anything on Jiffy Lube?
Jiffy Lube, I've asked for a formal statement from Jiffy Lube of their withdrawal to help to formalize what I believe is the case, which is that that site plan has expired. So even if they didn't withdraw, we'd have to kind of carry them back through the review process if they picked up again. But I don't have a sense that they're moving forward. I have yet to hear anything formal on that, but there's been no action on that in quite some time.
Through the chair, my comment is I would like to know why they withdrew, if at all possible, if you can get that information, because our community is underserved with routine maintenance.
I will try to find that
I
out.
know that.
I mean, it may just be economic, but we'd like to know if you can get it in a formal withdrawal and you can find out. We'd like to know if there's anything that we could have done differently or better.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Chair, I have a question for staff. Any word on, I know we approved a couple projects on Belleville Road, one in front of, well, the
Car
urgent
wash?
care. Yeah, the car wash in front of the urgent care.
Oh, Zippy?
Yeah, and then there was the development across from Menards, I think. No, across from Walmart, excuse me.
Shopping center.
The shopping center.
Shopping center.
Next
Belleville
to,
Retail.
next to Bell Tire.
Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been, I mean, we haven't seen any
Ground
progress
hasn't
or anything
broken.
on that. Huh?
No groundbreaking.
No shovel movement, yeah.
On the Belleville multi-tenant retail from Mr. Kishmish, I have not gotten any new submittals since their January preliminary site plan review. So if you'd like, I can add that to the follow-up list to try to find out what the status is on that. They may just be going through engineering design, but I haven't had anything stated on that in a while, so I can find out. With respect to Zippy, we have received the building permit application. I have to check some notes, but we have sent instructions on what is required for pre-construction, because you may know, after it goes through final site plan review and engineering with the planning commission, the plans are pretty well set, but there's still Wayne County permit, Eagle permits, potentially soil erosion permit from the county. A lot of things still have to fall into place that may have taken longer than our local review process here. So I think that they're working on getting their pre-construction package together.
They just finished their Canton one at the corner of Michigan Avenue and Beck. That's just completed. I don't know if they inaugurated it yet. So I'm thinking they're working one by one on this. That got approval before this one, so I think they're moving one by one, I would guess.
Great, as long as it's still moving forward.
It's being built now. The one at Michigan Avenue and Beck Road is being built.
I think they just finished it. I drove past there
Yeah.
the other day. It's not open yet, I think, Sherry.
I don't think so, but it's there
Is it just me, or is there a lot of car washes going up everywhere?
everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of money in it.
I read an article in Florida. It's Cape Coral. There was 200 permits for car washes that the city shut them down. They were already saturated with car washes, and they had 200 permits in the work queue. So everybody
lucrative.
must have that same idea,
much do
but
you
they're
wash
all
a
going to
car?
put each other out of business if they're all opening up a car wash.
Not that many cars.
No.
Mr. Chair, I have another question for staff.
Yes.
Director Power, you sent out an email, at least to the planning commissioners, with a link to a Safe Streets survey that you asked us to participate in, and I hope that everyone had a chance to click on it and identify some streets. I think it may have also gone off to the police department for their input. I don't know if it was a public thing or not. I guess my question is, are you still seeking feedback on that?
I will let you know if the survey period has ended. If I can find out here, I will let you know momentarily, but I believe we are still.
And is the survey open to the public, or was it?
Open to the public.
It is open to the public.
Any end date on there? Yes, Commissioner
Even
Atchison.
people that work in the community, live in the community, drive through the community, they can take the survey.
I looked at the early results of it, and I think it's very telling. I think our community as a group knows where the bad spots are, and it would be really good for some of the other neighborhoods and other parts of the township, not necessarily right in the center, but for everyone to participate and point out where our roads are, could use improvement. We have some that could use improvement.
Yes, I believe the survey is still open. I do not see an end date. I will re-forward this to the planning commission unless you've all done it already.
I did it.
And Commissioner Hutchinson, you serve on the Safe Streets for All committee, so good resource here. So thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Through the chair, motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting
Any
adjourned.
opposed? Hey, Medina, did you get a chance to wish you a happy anniversary? Was it 25 years or?
Yeah.
Silver anniversary, congratulations.